Hey everybody, Doug from Tech Dad here. It's been a little while since we had a conversation, so I'm starting a new series on AI and ML. What is that? AI is artificial intelligence and ML is machine learning. So, what brings us to this point? Well, the world is going crazy over it if you haven't noticed. You may have heard of something called Chat GPT, and there's some other ones out there as well at this point. So we're going to talk about what it is, where it's going, and is it something you should get a hold of and learn, or should you just ignore it and move on? Well, I guess that depends on who you are and what you want to accomplish out there in life. So why is the world going crazy over it? I think that's because not only is from all our sci-fi movies and books we read about sci-fi, we want intelligent robots and intelligent uh, computer beings, if you will. And so this is the premise of what we read about in our sci-fi novels. So I think that's why it's going crazy. But is it actually useful? Well, I think there are some useful things about it. So how does it work exactly? Well, it uses models, okay? And these models are set up to scan enormous amounts of data looking for things, looking for trends, looking for commonality. And so when you ask one of these AI ML engines to do something or to look for something, it's used these patterns of data, massive, I mean enormous petabytes of data, looking for trends as it relates to your question. And so what sort of things can you do with this technology? Well, you could actually tell it to write you a book on a topic or a subject. Create a video, a marketing video, for example, with actual virtual images, and build you a video game. You could even use it to write programming code. There's just lots and lots of uses of it. It's really, the limits are based on the models and the amount of data that corresponds to what those models are looking for. Well, are there any dangers with it? Well, I guess that depends on your perspective. Uh, their uses for it, as I just described, sound pretty innocent, pretty good. But the jury's really still out as to where the limit is. Where does the limit end in terms of what data you're allowed to look at? You know, for example, if you asked one of these engines to tell you about yourself, in other words, give it your name and see what it knows about you. Well, that can be kind of scary because it might know quite a bit about you. And you might not want that. You might not want that out there in the world that people can see you. But kind of a news flash, it's already out there, just so you know. Um, the next kind of thing that's a little bit scary is that the models can learn to model themselves. So in other words, it can do recursive creation of information, of trends, of analysis to come to new conclusions that you did not even ask it for. And so that kind of self-learning, as we would probably call it, is again the dream of the sci-fi novel. But where does it stop? When does it stop learning? And how does it decide if something is good or bad? That's not in the models. We haven't processed that. In other words, is it moral to do something or to write a story about something or to create a video about something? As you can imagine, there are some things that probably just shouldn't be created because they lead to other problems in our society. But we clearly don't know where the limits are at this point. And so until that happens, I think you'll see this is going to continue on. So what should you do? Well, depending on your interest level, we all should have some familiarity that they exist and kind of what they do. But depending on your role, maybe in your career or what you want to accomplish, you can use these as an aid to get, move forward. I use them to write programming code for me at this point. Why? Because I don't know every programming language, although I have experience with like over 13 programming languages. I don't use them all every day, and if I can get a piece of code written for me automatically in a language I don't know or one that I haven't used very often, obviously that's a big time saver. I might have to tweak it a little bit. That's fine. But you should know that you can have the engine tweak it too. So if it gives you a piece of code that does something and you say, no, that's not quite right, I wanted it to do more of X and less of Y, you can actually have it rewrite the code for you. But again, there's no human element when it comes to this stuff, right? It's all based on data in these models. So anyways, we're going to dive into some examples of this next time. But I wanted to introduce the topic, and thanks for joining us today on Tech Dad. Talk to you again soon.